Southampton. Goal.
Hello and welcome back to From the BON, your Burnley FC podcast. And I'm here with the regular team, Justin Conley, Paul Woodhouse, Chris Borden and Andrew Greaves. I'm Simon Evans. And as always, a lot to talk about and a lot to get through in Claret's world. We haven't seen massive amount of new faces arriving at Gawthorpe yet, but we're certainly hearing plenty of talk about players who might be arriving or who we're interested in, who were rumoured to be looking at. We're going to get onto that in a second. We'll also be talking about the new shirt sponsor, and we've got an interview with Claire, a French journalist who has researched a lot into that particular sponsor Burnley have signed a deal with. We'll have that coming up later on. We'll talk about safe standing as well. So let's get underway on the transfer situation. And so what do we know at the moment about Nathan Teller, Chris? It seems like that situation is still ongoing.
Yeah, we've obviously seen him report to training. There was a bit of an awkward situation. I think the Southampton press team were asking all the players who they'd missed over the summer, and you could sort of tell that Nathan Teller had probably missed his mates at Burnley, and he just decided to keep stum on the subject. But yeah, that's one that might sort of drag on, you suspect, towards maybe the end of the window. It's like a bit of a poker game. That will Southampton maybe let him go for a little less? Will Burnley stump up 15 million? But it's one that might drag on. But it was good to see Dara O'Shea came in from left field. Really, I think we've all been looking at Harwood Bellis and. So I think it was John Percy who broke out his close contacts in the Midlands, and for what £7 million to get an Irish senior Irish international who's played Premier League football, he represents good value. He could play anywhere across the back. Primarily played across the back three. He can play left back, play right back, play centre mid. Seems like he's got a real good temperament, and one of those players in the mould of Tarkowski and me that blocks everything and wins tackles, makes interceptions, but he's good at pressing, and distribution might be something that will improve under Vincent Kompany. But I think Burnley have made a very astute bit of business there.
Yeah, I think from the kind of noises we keep getting from the kind of player we're looking for, he kind of fits that mold, doesn't he, to a certain extent. He's still relatively young, and I think there is improvement in his game which we've got to look at, and I think they're the kind of players we're targeting. You're not going to get finished products for 7 million. We've arguably got somebody who's quite a way down the finished product line in Bayer, and it's now a case of slotting people alongside him, I think, in terms of being able to get a Alderkirk or a O'Shea or a Ekdown next to him to kind of give us that little bit of room for improvement to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot of rumours coming out about Belgian players as well, isn't there? It does seem that I mean, it's an obvious one for journalists, isn't it, to look at Vincent Kompany and go, oh, he's going to go for Belgian players. But it does seem that there are some real interesting players over there.
They say, obviously, they've been linked with the fullback from Anderlecht to, like I say, I'm knowing nothing about the kid, but just looking at his profile, looks like it might not necessarily be a senior first team player for the near future. Looks like he may be a development type, but it's.
What are they talking about? Like 19-year-old, what, $1 million?
Yeah, £1 million, 18-year-old fullback. But it's they're going to, they obviously two right backs. As it stands, we've got got Charlie Taylor with with no sign of anything moving with Ian Maatsen, so that's going to have to. I don't think anyone foresees Charlie Taylor playing regularly at left back for Vincent Kompany in the Premier League. Obviously under Sean Dyche, he would, if fit, probably would have started every week. But it's the way Burnley play, so high up the pitch, and it's an athletic lad, Charlie, but he just probably hasn't got the pace to be able to do that anymore. And his ability on the ball, not as good as what we've seen from Maatsen. But this a pool of centre backs looks solid. I'd love to have seen Harwood Bellis through the door. And I think at 15 million quid, I think that represents really good value. I still, you'll be making 2 or 3 times that in a few years' time. I think he's of the Kale class, that sort of type. But it's whether is the pool of central midfielders good enough? I mean, that seems to be an area where they're looking at, and obviously, short in the forward department.
Yeah, I mean, if Gyökeres isn't coming, and it sounds like he isn't, that does sort of leave that number 9, big number 9, or main central striker as one that needs addressing, unless we think that the players we brought in last year, Foster and Obafemi, are going to be the answers. I mean, Justin, what do you think? Do we need to be looking definitely to bring in someone in that position?
Absolutely. I think apart from anything else, just for the sake of the numbers, we've lost Barnes, and he played a lot of games last season, didn't he? So we need to fill that gap in the squad. And it's interesting, isn't it? Looking at the goalkeeper situation, we seem to be linked with almost 2,000 goalkeepers over the last week, and we've actually signed one. And a lot of those names that are being mentioned are not the sort of players who you think are going to come in and just be a backup to Muric. Now, Muric is a player that we all raved about, in our sort of review of last season. So there was no suggestion that we needed another goalkeeper, but the fact that we are linked with all these different keepers would suggest to me that Kompany is looking to strengthen parts of the team where we don't even think there's a problem. So surely he's looking up front as well, because I know we've got J-Rod is not getting any younger. Obviously he's going to be part of the mix as well, but that leaves us with just 2 other really recognized central strikers. Obviously, we think Weghorst is not going to come back and he's going to move on somewhere else. So we need somebody up front, and we need somebody who's going to be not just challenging for a place in the squad, but he's going to be our number 1 striker, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's that number 1 striker, the player who if Foster wants to be playing Premier League football, Foster's got to be showing every week in training that he deserves a chance. And when the cup game comes along and our number 9 is given a rest, then they come in hungry trying to score goals. But
exactly that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other area would have to be, central midfield, wouldn't it? Because I mean, much as similar to the J-Rod discussion, really, Jack Cork, isn't it? It's a similar one in that it's a player who I think all of us really like and appreciate everything he's done and hope that he's got another good season in the Premier League in him, but he's also not getting any younger. I mean, Greavesy, would you be looking at central midfield there?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's one of the areas we are looking at. I mean, we've been linked with is it Veranks, the young Belgian central midfielder. I think he's played twice recently for the kind of senior team, and then has been on under 21 duty. And I was just looking at him and the lad from Arsenal. Imagine if you had a midfield of Lokonga from Arsenal, Veranks, and Josh Cullen, with Brownhill in a more forward role. And I think you've almost got that upgrade that we're looking for in midfield. I think, one of the things we've got to think about is what system is he going to play? I was talking to a mate of mine earlier tonight, and I think he might go 3 at the back in some games, so the stockpiling of centre halves might be a kind of indication that he might go 3 at the back with wing backs who tuck into that midfield. So, how much surgery does midfield need? I don't know. It's kind of, like Justin was saying, it looks like he's trying to pick up players in areas where he and his team have spotted an improvement potential. The goalkeeper, I don't think anyone would expect us to replace Muric as number one, but the people we're getting linked with, Verbruggen, who looks like he's going to Brighton, looks like that's finally being done. The Belgian goalkeeper of the year, the French lad, whose name escapes me, he's not going to come here and kick his heels on the bench at his age. He's just won the Belgian Championship and been voted best keeper in Belgium. You know what I mean? So there's clearly, I think it goes beyond trying to find competition for Muric, and this is the exciting thing. I think waking up every morning with 30 different new players being linked, but until we see them holding the new home shirt or in the snazzy new training kit signing a contract, we've still not got that many people through the door yet.
There's the is it Fleming at Millwall that obviously sounds like there's a strong interest in. I've got to be honest, not a player that sort of watched him and thought, oh yeah, sort of penciled him down as one that might come in, but certainly on paper represents like a decent signing. But the goalkeeper one's a strange one. Obviously I think Butez he's sort of like late 20s. Tenas from Barcelona B, he's 22. They're like wildly like different levels of experience with the players that they've been linked with. So Verbruggen's still not great experience, but I think a lot of people think he's got a really high ceiling, but obviously every single one of them adept with their feet. But so looking at sort of Tenas is brave, confident goalkeeper, ball player, a leader, strong communicator. They're ticking all the boxes really. So again, I like the look of Vigouroux. Listening to his interview, upon signing, and he's not. He's not like a Will Norris who's come in and looked at like Burnley's goalkeeping department and thought, I'm number 3 and I'm going to be lucky to get a game in cup games. He's coming here thinking, I'm going to have a right go at this. I'm going to, if I don't quite get the number 1 shirt, fine. I'm going to, really work hard and push the number 1 or the 2 goalkeepers ahead of me. But if you watch his his highlights reel and his passing ability, so you look at Muric and he can go long and he can go short. Great mate. Vigouroux's like sort of long passes, like a bit like Pickford. He's got that sort of range of passing. He's not one who's going to sort of keep it simple, I think. But he's, I bet his assists were pretty decent for Leyton Orient last season. The amount of balls he's, quick, nice and early, good accuracy, and good vision. I like the look of him. You'd expect Peacock Farrell. If you're an international goalkeeper, I really can't see him staying around and thinking, another season. But I mean, he played more games than we thought he'd play last season. To be fair, and I still think he's not as bad as people think with his feet either. I think he's decent in that respect, but. I just wouldn't be surprised to see him move out, and maybe there might be 1, maybe there might be 2 goalkeepers come through the door.
Are you surprised, Woody, that we seem to be linked with so many goalkeepers, given that Muric was, as Justin was calling him, the Glenn Hoddle of goalkeepers, and all kinds of praise was being heaped on him.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's slightly surprising and slightly worrying that we aren't linked, for example, with 5 strikers and infinitely more midfielders, and we're being linked with so many goalkeepers. And we think, like everybody else has said, that it's pretty much tied in, apart from maybe 1 or 2. But yeah, I'm definitely surprised. But maybe Vincent needs something slightly different to back stuff up. He obviously knows what's going on with his goalkeeping squad. So
I do wonder as well, though, sometimes with transfer rumours, those of us who work or have worked in the media know how it works sometimes, and the word is out that Burnley are looking for a keeper. So that starts to generate its own level of stories, doesn't it? Whereas, I'm sure in a few weeks, if we start getting linked with more strikers, or the Gyökeres story, it's like Burnley were knocked back in their hopes to sign him, then we'll start to be linked with like 3 or 4 strikers from Standard Liège or wherever they are. Yeah, plenty of transfer rumours, and we'll have more for them on our next episode as well, where we're going to hoping to have a special guest who can give us some real insight into how Vincent's company's transfer strategy is going. Let's move along now and talk about something else that was in the news this week. So Burnley announced this week a sponsorship deal, shirt sponsorship deal with W88, an Asian-facing gambling company who we've seen on the shirts of other clubs in the past, Wolverhampton Wanderers and Aston Villa amongst them. It's caused some debate online amongst Burnley fans on one level because it's a gambling company, but also specifically because of the kind of gambling company it is. So we thought we'd speak to somebody who's done a lot of research and has a lot of information on this. French journalist Philippe Auclair, who's written for Yosimar magazine, some really in-depth analysis of who these companies are, because no one we know bets at W88. They barely have a presence in the British market, any of these companies like Daffer Bet and Fun and all the different companies that we've seen on shirts. So what's going on? We decided to invite Philippe to talk to us about that. And here's what he had to say. So, Philippe, Burnley have started a new sponsorship arrangement with W88. You've looked into a number of these companies, the Asia-linked betting companies that are very prominent on a number of Premier League shirts and have been for some time. What do we know about W88?
Both a lot and not very much. First of all, they're not a company, they're a brand, which is not quite the same thing. So they're part of a greater portfolio of brands. Which one is quite difficult to ascertain sometimes. But for example, they have also been operating as Uday. They've been quite active in the sponsorship business. For a while, under 10 years, as far as I can tell. Obviously, they've worked with Wolves in the past. They've worked with Aston Villa. They've worked with Crystal Palace, and Emil Heskey has been a long-time ambassador for them as well in Asia and the Far East. And now it's your turn at Burnley. They're also partners of the Argentinian FA, so they've obviously got quite a lot of money to spend to acquire those partnerships with pretty big names in world football. When it comes to who they are exactly, who owns them, who operates them, well, it's the same as with all these so-called Asian-facing operators. It's very difficult to gauge that. Like, for example, if you go to and try to find out, you will look at W88, their presence in Britain, and in that they're quite unique. Well, not quite unique, but they're unusual in as much they do have they do exist in Britain. They do have a w88.co.uk website, which you can go to. They have an address in Poole. For once, their representative, Hilly Ehrlich, who always is quoted in all the statements about sponsorships, is a real person and not an actor who's been taken in just for the sake of the statement, because believe me, that's the rule with those operators usually. So
Right.
they can look a little bit more legit, but you could feel the but coming. If you're looking at what exactly they're doing, and if you think, okay, well, they're just like a gambling company trying to establish their brand in Britain, you would be wrong, because I had a look. It's possible these days to gauge what is the traffic on websites and to actually compare. I've got a few tools and I've compared 3 different ones, and all the numbers were actually congruent. And the number of monthly visits to their British website last month was only 4.9 K, so 4,900, and it's not unique visitors, it's visits. So
Very
probably
small.
the website of your local coffee shop probably is about 10 times that. So it's completely inexistent, and also quite a number of those visits were actually bounced off. Like about a third of them bounced off, as in didn't. Basically nothing happened. And when you compare that with the other websites that W88, the brand, operates, the difference is quite stark. And they seem to be particularly active in Vietnam, which is, of course, a country where gambling is is illegal, and I shouldn't publicize those websites because they're illegal. But I can tell you that I looked at 5 of them indeed. Um, all of them were operating either Vietnam or Malaysia or Indonesia. The most popular had 1.2 million visits last month. Another one had 737,000, and the others were in around 260, 250,000 visits per month. And when you think that, in fact, there are dozens and dozens of those mirror websites, as we call them, you can gather that it is a big operator in that part of the world. Not in Britain. It has a license which was granted to a company called Midnight Gaming, um,
Right.
which you know as much as I do about them.
That's the white label. That is the white label. Then.
What they always called a white label company, but in fact they don't really operate in England. It's a complete fiction, and you would have thought that since they've already sponsored and partnered a number of Premier League clubs, you would imagine that they would have built a customer base in Britain, but that's not the case. Nobody in Britain bets on W88. Right. People bet on more popular websites, and it's people from the Far East who actually flock to that particular gambling website and its mirror incarnations. Emil Heskey, by the way, is not the only famous footballer who's actually endorsed them. I mean, John Terry is another one who seems to have endorsed more gambling websites than I can quote, but he's one of the others. And they've also, I keep saying that because they're just a brand. They're part of a bigger corporation. And W88 is not the company's name. So, which is to say, we do know a lot, but we know absolutely nothing. And I can tell you one thing. The guys at the commercial department of Burnley FC, if you put to them the question, who owns W88, they wouldn't be able to answer you.
Right. I mean, when you look at what they're doing, then essentially it appears that if gambling is illegal in those markets, then presumably advertising for gambling is illegal as well. This way, they're getting television screens in those markets by being on the front of one of the most popular sports television programs in that country. Yeah,
that's exactly it. It's the Premier League is the most popular league in that region. When people watch it, they're bombarded with obviously advertising because obviously you will also have advertising in the ground at the ground, and you will have banners as well, LED on the LED boards. And of course, on their own websites, and they've been very quick. I was looking at a few of them. Again, I'm not giving the URLs because they are illegal websites.
Sure.
When I was looking at it, I mean, I'm using a VPN, obviously, virtual private network, to be able to see what people in that part of the world can see. You already have emblazoned on those websites the logo and the crest of Burnley FC. So, obviously, they want to maximize the value of their association with the club, because when you associate with a Premier League club, you do get the exposure through television, but you also get a measure of credibility because you can tell people, well, look, we're legit. If our name is displayed on the front of shirts in England or on the LED boards or in the dugout above, Vincent Kompany's head, it means that we are legitimate operators, and that therefore people know about you, they know where to go. And also they believe that you are a legitimate operator, even though they're fully aware of the fact that gambling in those countries is illegal and can actually lead you to prison.
I mean, you've done a lot of research for Yosimar. You've written about this. We'll provide the links so that people can read that material. But I mean, I suppose one of the defenses for this would be, well, everybody else is doing it. That's one thing that Burnley would say, I would imagine. And the other thing is, I don't know what the Premier League's policy is or their vetting procedure for sponsorships. I don't know if you've looked at that, but presumably this gets okayed by the Premier League, yeah?
Well, it's more complicated than that. We have been trying, me and my friends from Yosimar, we've been trying to get precise answers from the Premier League. And by the way, UK Gambling Commission, we shouldn't forget about them because they're the ones who actually gave the license to start with. We've tried to, it's a kind of hot potato. It's like when you talk to one party, they will say, well, it's the responsibility of somebody else. and you go to that somebody else, and somebody else says, well, it's the responsibility of somebody else. So when you talk to the Premier League, they say, well, it's up to the clubs, obviously, to vet who are their partners.
Right.
And I have to say, if I'm absolutely fair, if you think vetting is only a question of just checking a few things, very basic things, you will find out that there is nothing illegal. I should add that we have to be very careful here, because those gambling websites, operators, operate illegally and have got links to very unsavory people. I leave it at that. I think people can go to what we've done, Yozima, and have a look at who these people are. But as far as Burnley is concerned, there is nothing illegal by doing a deal, which they will have signed probably with an offshoot of that company. They will never have signed with the actual owner. They won't. They won't know who the owner is. I maintain that. And it might have been with an agency. It might have been with Midnight Gaming, which is based in Poole, which is a legitimate company registered with Companies House. I'm sure they submit accounts that they've got people there, managing director and whatever. And so the UK Gambling Commission can go there and check. Oh, does this person have a criminal record? No. Have they submitted their accounts in time? Yet, even if those accounts, by the way, bear no relation whatsoever with the accounts of the actual company, W88. So it's all legal. It's absolutely legal. So every time we've asked, and we've asked a number of times, you can imagine, Simon, we got non-committal answers, or people saying, the Premier League saying, well, it's up to the clubs to do due diligence, and we entrust our shareholders, i.e. the 20 clubs which comprise the Premier League, to do the due diligence properly. And when it comes to white labels, you've got this extraordinary answer from the UK Gambling Commission, who for me are where the problem really lies, even if you obviously can be a little bit okay, you might not approve of this kind of relationship with such operators.
Right.
But the UK Gambling Commission leaves the task of due diligence for white label companies, such as W88, to the people who have issued the white label. This is crazy. So instead of doing due diligence on W88, they're going to do the due diligence with Midnight Gaming, just as, for example, Fulham announced today that they had signed a new deal with SBO Bet, or Aston Villa 2 days ago with a huge deal with BK8, the Malaysian company. But they've done that through an agency called TGP, which is based on the Isle of Man. And therefore, the UKGC will only look at TGP in Isle of Man or Midnight Gaming in Poole and look at them and think, oh, they've got licenses with us. That's absolutely fine. It's up to them to do the due diligence. And I can tell you, the due diligence is absolutely pathetic. And in the case of TGP, I will say it loud and clear. I've said it many times because these people don't want to talk to anybody. Their due diligence simply doesn't exist. They're just a conduit for illegal gambling operators. And in fact, they were linked. They had very, very close links to one of the biggest illegal operators, actually, as in the operator owned that particular company. And this operator, the boss, is currently in prison serving an 18-year jail sentence for very, very serious crimes committed and related to illegal gambling in Macau and China. So this gives you an idea of what the kind of world we're dealing with here. And I think there's a general attitude throughout the football business in this country, I'm sorry to say that, which is we'll take the money because they offer big money, they offer more than normal sponsors. And we look the other way as long as the right boxes are ticked. Because you see, the other thing, Simon, which perhaps we should say, is that they can only, in Europe, in the big, if you talk about the big 5 leagues, they can only now advertise in England. Because Spain has banned all advertising on shirts in 2019, 2020, I think it was. France has got incredibly strict laws about gambling companies. I think there's only 15 of them licensed in France compared to nearly 3,000 in Britain. Same in Germany, which has got a new system in place and where there are partnerships with those type of gambling operators, but there are regional partnerships that people in Germany won't be aware of. Italy is the same. They've reduced the number of operators who can advertise. So you're left with England, which is why as well, operators like that are willing to pay a premium and that clubs the commercial departments of clubs, when you have got somebody who comes to your door, knocks on your door, and tells you he's going to buy that space, advertising space, for 30 or 40% more money than anybody else on the market, what do? I think you tend to perhaps be a little bit more generous in your appraisal of how fit they are to have a place on your team's shirt.
That's absolutely fascinating, Philip. Well, thanks very much indeed for your time. Just one last thing: the gambling in general on sponsorship of Premier League clubs is going to end for the 25-26 season. That's right? Yeah. So this is going to end presumably as well.
Yeah, it should end by 25-26, but advertising will still be allowed on the sleeves of the jerseys, which is a big business, on the LED boards. So
Right.
it's, as well as regional partnerships are not going to be looked at. So they'll be less visible, but they will still be here, and you will still see on the boards of clubs in the Premier League and the Championship, by the way, and some actually League One clubs. You will still see advertising in Thai, in Vietnamese, in Mandarin, and you will wonder what on earth is going on here. Well, it's very simple. The message is aimed at somebody else than you, and which is why these people are present in our game, I'm afraid.
So essentially what Philippe is saying there really is that Burnley are getting put on the table an offer which is probably about 40% above what other companies would be paying for the same space on the shirt. Other clubs are doing it. We don't know much about these companies and what their associations are in the countries where gambling is illegal, but they're using the shirt sponsorship to get their advertising out on TV in countries where gambling advertising is illegal. It raises a whole host of moral questions, doesn't it? I mean, what do you make of this, Justin?
Well, it's quite disconcerting, isn't it? I think. I mean, and it's, having heard what we've just heard, we know it's quite difficult to really puzzle out what's actually going on here, and this idea that there's an organisation that we're dealing with that is so lacking in transparency that you'd need all this time and resources really get to the bottom of what's really going on, who owns it, what the goal is, and where they're doing that. That to me is an immediate red flag. I mean, obviously, there's two ways of looking at this. There's this idea that to go into partnership with a business that's already quite murky isn't something that we're comfortable with, and we should do something about it. And as far as I understand, the authorities are doing something about it, and the kind of deal that we've just done won't be possible in a couple of years for obvious reasons. Or you can just
for the front of the shirt.
Yeah, you can do it on the arms, can't you? I think, but the deal to be the main shirt sponsor couldn't go ahead. So you can say, well, let's grab the money while we can. Then, we need to make as much money as we can, while we can. And does it make any difference that it's this? Does it affect anybody here? Is it really important? But I don't think that argument stacks up, because that would suggest to me that there isn't a line anywhere that where we don't cross. And I think there is a line to be drawn, and that line isn't just what's legal. There are some things that you don't want your football club, our football club, which is like a community asset, really, to be associated with, whether it's legal or not. And I think, an overseas betting company about which we know very little, that doesn't even operate in this country, seems to me to be over that line.
I mean, there has to be a line somewhere, doesn't there? I mean, Greavesy, I mean, there are companies that if you mention their name, people would immediately say, no, we're not. I don't know. Some people online were saying, would you have Pornhub on the front of your shirt? So, where there has to be a line somewhere. Does this fall the wrong side of it, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it does, and I think there's a couple of issues. I mean, when Alan Pace came in, he was challenged by Burnley fans about betting sponsors, because I think we'd kind of had our fill of betting sponsors, and he said he was looking, part of he had his own opinions on betting companies and betting sponsors, and he said he was looking at the all of the relations, and kind of alludes to the fact that we were looking to end betting sponsorships, because he said, there's existing agreements in place, but we'll review them as we kind of get his feet under the table. And I think that to me kind of, we've got BK8 as the training wear sponsor, who also have kind of a slightly, slightly murky recent past. I think Norwich ended their deal with BK8 in a very short space of time because of some sexualized images that they were using on some of their promotional material in Asian countries. And then, of course, we've now signed up with W88, and I think it became clear, and we alluded to it kind of last podcast. I think that actually it's becoming really clear that as kind of smart money men that our kind of ownership group is, and I think their track record on Wall Street and investment banking, etc., they're actually really struggling to get proper commercial deals. I mean, there's been a massive kind of release today, a very sycophantic release about a new gym supplier supplying the equipment, Primal. We might as well give them a plug. They've probably paid some money to be, kit out the gym down at the Barnfield, down at Gorthorpe. But you just look and it just feels very strange, the kind of commercial partnerships that we've got. But as Philippe said in that interview, if they come along, a gambling company, it seems like W88 especially, or the group which own the brand W88, because it is just a brand, as Philippe was saying, clearly have a large pot of money which they target promoted clubs. If you think about the clubs who've had W88, Fulham last year, Villa just after they'd got promoted, and it's 7 to 9 million quid. It's probably a 1-year deal. It probably is one of those kind of, look, we'll move on to whoever gets promoted next year. If Leicester come back up, Leicester have had sports betting partnerships, etc. So the worrying thing for me is that the background of it. He said, he was quite clear, there's nothing illegal that Burnley's done. Lots of other clubs have done it, but it's that murky kind of, a few thousand visitors to the UK betting website. I think he likened it to your local coffee shop will probably have similar kind of hits and things like that on their website. So it just feels a little bit like we're getting into bed with unsavory people, and we actually don't know who these people are. That was a brilliant question when he said, you asked the commercial department at Burnley, who are you getting into bed with? And they won't know, because there's a company based in Poole, there's a company based on the Isle of Man, and they're just fronts. And I did a bit of digging after we'd spoke to him last night, and there was a great piece that I think he'd done actually on Yosimar, which is well worth a visit, by the way, where kind of Emil Heskey was doing some kind of launch as an ambassador. And basically the chief executive, who they'd kind of trumpeted for one of these companies, I don't think it was W88, was basically just a paid actor. And the girl they had was just a paid actress. And she said, oh, yeah, I know Tom, or whatever the actor was called, but they were trumpeting him as like Duncan Smith, CEO of this company. And it was all just a front. And that's the kind of worrying thing that, we've not even talked about the kind of, the gambling addiction and the deaths from gambling and all of the moral issues and the kind of health issues with gambling, which are, in themselves a reason to walk away from this kind of deal. But I thought it was telling yesterday when the deal came out, the amount suddenly on the website of youth team players signing new contract stories that shunted the announcement of W88 off the homepage very, very quickly. And I think today's gym announcement on Thursday is probably very similar. Just we have to announce it, then just get it off the homepage. And we've done that a couple of times. We did it with a membership. All of a sudden, it's like almost nonsensical. Oh, Chelsea in focus. We all know who Chelsea are. We don't need a website story to tell us. But we've announced it. Get it off the homepage. Feels like a weird strategy, but there you go. It's my 10 pence worth.
I think we've seen the sort of the figure mentioned. He said like between 7 and 9 million for the sponsorship, which it's a whacking chunk of money. But I think I read one of the quotes on the release saying, it will help us be competitive. If 7 million quid, is 7 million quid going to be the difference between Burnley staying in the Premier League or not? I doubt it. I can see both sides. You want to be sort of have this moralistic stance and sort of veer away from anything like that. And last year was so. I don't know. It's like a really organic, really nice story that we got these two kids from Manchester who've created this empire of latched onto the retro shirts market and are doing fabulously well. And it on the back of a retro looking shirt that was universally loved by Burnley fans, and you have the season that Burnley had in it, to all of a sudden go to one of these, it's appeared on Wolves' shirt, it's been on Fulham's shirt, it's been on Villa's shirt. So already Burnley's strip, whatever it looks like this season, will look like Villa's shirt from 3 or 4 years ago.
Greavesy, you've got a quick thought?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, and this is for Woody and Justin, because I know they're big fans. Right, here we go. Here's a conundrum. Umbro bring back the Burnley V shirt with the old BFC logo, but W88 on. Are we happier, aren't we?
Oh,
what a question.
Woody.
How dare you? Well, if it was probably like a double V, then yeah, you could probably get away with it, couldn't you? Of course, in the rest of Europe, all other leagues have kind of banned this, and there's only really England still dragging its heels to a greater or lesser degree.
So the answer to your question, Greaves, is no, we don't want that.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I do have a bit of sympathy for the club in the sense that if somebody's coming in and it is like to say we've done a deal is really, I saw somebody on one of the online forums saying like, congrats to Alan and the team on getting this deal over the line. And it just doesn't work like that with these people. They've got a budget for the year. They go up to the clubs and say, here, do you want a load of money more than anyone that you've talked to has even got close to paying you? It's hard to say no, though, isn't it? It is difficult for a club that, especially a club that's not doing, as Greavesy alluded to, not doing particularly well at generating revenue and deals. I mean, we're not bringing in big American brands to be on the front of a shirt. Oh, we're doing the same as everybody else,
No, but that's the question, isn't it? Why are we not bringing these big American brands in? We've got, global exposure. Whatever you say, the shirts are going to be seen across the planet in the most popular league in the world. Why isn't I don't know, Coca-Cola interested? Why can't we get some money out of them? Maybe it won't be 7 million, but it makes us look a lot better, doesn't it?
It does raise questions. I don't have a clue how the commercial department the club runs these days. I don't even know who's in charge of it anymore. There seems to have been a lot of movement in the sort of behind the scenes staff at Burnley over the last year or two, people coming in and then leaving quickly and others coming in and so on. I don't know, but you would have expected when we got American owners that that's one of the things they'd be really, really hot on. Even if their background, like you were saying, Greaves, is that financial background, they're good at moving money around rather than generating revenue through commercial deals. You think they would have known the people to bring in who could do that, So that it's a bit of a surprise, really, but I guess, when we're going to be debating this next year, when, there's another sponsorship deal, it's still going to be 25-26 when the front of the shirts aren't going to be able to include any gambling at all, which I don't know. What do we think about that one? Because it's another one of these rules that's coming into football that is trying to veer the Premier League and English football towards something vaguely ethical. But, I mean, there are people who say, well, that ship sailed a long time ago. Do you think it's right that in 2026 we won't have even legit gambling Bet365s or William Hills that aren't involved in anything murky in Asia or anything? Do you think it's right that they're getting rid of that, Chris?
I'd say so. It's one of those. I'm not one of those who even as an accumulator or anything. I don't gamble. I never have. I know nothing about horses, so why would I go bet on horse racing? I'd like to think I've got some knowledge of football, but you can't predict that on a weekly basis. So it's just if I see, like I said, William Hill on someone's shirt, it's not going to make me think for a second to gamble. But it is a kick in the face for some people who have had these addictions or families that have. Even lost people to, it's got as bad as it's got for people who've had they've lost a lot of money and they've hit rock bottom, etc. But it's like anything else. Society moves on. We can't have, Tottenham with like Holston pills on the front. We don't want to actually, advertise alcohol. We don't have cigarette brands on the front of shirts and things like that. I think even, like I say, Justin mentioned like Coca-Cola. I bet there'd probably be an issue with that, with the fat content. And you remember the old Spanish shirt with the Burger King. You pulled the shirt over your head and it had the. You probably wouldn't get that because it's encouraging kids to eat fatty food and stuff like that. It's just the way society evolves. But ultimately, what you're left with then, you're left with like your Ensleys and your classic football shirts and P3 computers and things like that, which aren't going to generate near enough for Premier League football.
Has anyone here ever bought a product or a service because that product or service was associated with Burnley Football Club? I mean, I don't think I have. I don't remember buying Ensley Insurance.
I bought a mouse once from P3 Computers. Genuinely, when it was still down Rose Grove, I kind of thought to myself, "Oh well, that $4.99 for a new mouse, that's going to bring Marco Gentili through the door." So I contributed towards that absolute waste of a transfer.
I did have Ensley Insurance.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woody, any Oakland furniture?
Plenty. I'm still stocked up with like Holland's pies from that season, obviously in the freezer. So there's that. Yeah.
Vodka Kick. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, VK. We could have VK on the shirts again now.
There you go.
Well,
Brilliant. In that special department, Simon.
Right, let's move along. And another issue that came up this week, and it's one of those issues that people debate to and fro about, is the safe standing question around Turf Moor in particular. Andrew, what's emerged about that this week?
Yeah, so this was something Radio Lancashire did. It was quite an interesting kind of interview with Doug Metcalf, the kind of head of operations and facilities at Turf Moor, kind of just talking him through the changes that are happening. So, we're getting a new players entrance, which is going to be a bit more all singing, all dancing. But he also mentioned safe standing, and obviously a lot of teams have started to think about it. I think at Man United, they've started putting in those kind of railway, I think they call it like railway seats, if you will. And yeah, I mean, I think it's an absolutely cracking idea. It's always the case of where do you put them, because every area you've got people who like to stand up. When I've sat in the James Hargreaves lower, there's people who stand in front of us. Sometimes I'm in the upper tier next year, so because of the angle of the stand, I don't think I'll be doing too much standing up for long periods. But I just think if you turned the cricket field stand, that Burnley end of the cricket field stand, into the safe standing, most people stand in there for 90 minutes anyway, don't they? And I just think it gives you that kind of, mini version of the yellow wall at Dortmund, where, you get a lot of atmosphere. The players love going to that at the end of the game. I'd love for us to find a way to get rid of away fans in that stand and kind of stick them somewhere else. Because I just think if we could, you could make that whole stand safe standing, I think that's where you create an incredible atmosphere. Because I think at times, when I've sat in the James Hargreaves stand towards that end, or I've sat in the cricket field, you do get such an atmosphere in there. And I think, the fact that most people stand up for large periods kind of helps that, I think.
Yeah, I think something does need to be done just to give that edge to Turf Moor, because, all right, maybe it was the football towards the end of Sean Dyche's time, but there was a lot of games where there wasn't a great atmosphere, were there? On Turf Moor for that period. And then it did come back alive again when, there was that little mini revival under Michael Jackson, wasn't there? And there were moments that season where there was Cornet mania going on, and that was all good. But there's not a roar on Turf Moor, is there? Like, really, that sort of visceral. So, like, you talk about an end, a cop, or since the long side's gone, there hasn't really been that, in my opinion. I mean, Justin, what do you think could be done? Is safe standing the solution?
Yeah, I think it could be. I mean, I think the atmosphere perhaps last season might have been lacking because it was kind of quite easy, wasn't it? There weren't any games where, at home at least, even the games we lost there wasn't a whole lot of tension in it. It was quite a stroll for a lot of those games. You know, those games where we were 2-0 up at half time, and it was just a question of how many more we were going to score in the second half. And it was that sort of form, unfortunately, doesn't really make for that kind of on the edge sort of atmosphere. I think we might find a little bit more of that this season. I don't know if anybody here was at the Etihad when we got thrashed 6-0, but the atmosphere from the away ends there was absolutely sensational, and literally everybody, all the 8,000 Burnley fans who were there, were stood up for the whole game and making an absolute racket. So if you could replicate that with safe standing, then, you know, yeah, I'm with Greavesy on that. The cricket field stand would be a great place to do it. I think they stand up quite a lot in the Jimmy McIlroy stand as well, particularly down on the lower tier. It's not for me, I have to say. I would be cramping up in my calves well before half time. They'd have to sub me off. But I just think it's a great idea. I mean, apart from anything else, there's no way to stop people standing up, is there? So football grounds are a totally different place to what they were when these rules came in. Not least because it's a different demographic of fans now, isn't it? Different kind of people. And you know, whether it's legal or not, people are going to stand up. So you might as well do it in a safe way, and a way that doesn't inconvenience, you know, anybody else. If I'd bought a season ticket in an area where everyone's standing up all the time, I'd be finished. I wouldn't see the end of any games because I'd have to go home and sit down somewhere. So I'm all for it. If people can stand up safely and not inconvenience other people, and it brings back a bit of that atmosphere that we were talking about, the kind of thing we saw at the Etihad. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. It's good to see them moving in that direction.
Perhaps we could have a special tier of membership. Like we could have a standing member. Like, I don't know what special gifts you'd get, like, but yeah. Any other thoughts on that one?
But it's got to be safer. I took my eldest on for his first game against Coventry. And we were in the sort of, you know, the bottom right corner of the Hargreaves stand towards the tunnel, and he had to stand on his seat for pretty much 90 minutes. And you know, you flip seats, they're not ideal for that sort of thing, are they? Really, if you're going to have people who are stood up, and like Justin said, you can't stop people standing up. You know, it's all right having stewards in there. Okay, do you mind sitting down, please, sir? It's 2 minutes later, they're back up again, and it's. You know, you'd be better to have the alternative, to have that rail seating. But you could even lean against your rail, couldn't you? If needs must, and things like, you know, it's. We all remember the old barriers and things. You know, the crush barriers that were, you know, were great. If you got positioned on one of those, you could lean against one of them and watch the football. It was. It's like
rest your pie on top of
years ago.
Simon's got safe standing behind him there. Look.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I stood on there many an afternoon, and it was never in any danger, only because there were only about 7 or 8 people on there with us.
No, it's. I mean, I over the last few years, I've been on Aki Stanley quite a lot, and I always choose to stand though behind the goal at the Clayton end there.
You're an ultra, aren't you?
Yeah. It's weird, actually. It's completely different from because a part of it is, I will say, like a sort of nostalgia thing. That's the way I grew up watching football, was standing behind the goal on the BO end or on the long side, and it's nice to be able to still do that. But it has changed. I mean, that stench of piss you used to get on the long side, it's like it's a faint whiff of watermelon vapes now when you go that way. It's very different. But I think we're all in favour of it. I think it's something that'd be great. Anything that boosts the atmosphere and makes it a more intimidating place, I think, could be great. So thanks very much, everyone, for being here again. Another podcast is in the books. We'll be back again soon, and more guests and more topics and more things to fall out about, hopefully. All the best. Cheers.
Jimmy McIlroy to Watson.